Hi witches, welcome back to my channel. It is me, your local chaotic witch hunt. And today I am talking about my favorite tips for doing spirit work. I figured that it's spooky season, Samhain or All Souls Day or Halloween, whatever you celebrate, is right around the corner. And it's the perfect time to talk about working with spirits. I was going to do kind of like an intro spirit work video, but I already did one of those a year ago. You can find it here. Today we're talking about kind of the reality of spirit work, some of my tips for working with spirits, and obviously this is going to be through the lens of not only a folk practitioner, but an Italian-American folk practitioner. Not everyone in every tradition approaches spirits and spirit work the same way, so please keep that in mind when you're watching this video. I'm making this video because I feel like a lot of misunderstanding exists in the mainstream about ghosts, and also because I figured it would be a fun little video right around time for this, I don't know, for October. While I agree that a lot of spirits can be malevolent and malevolent spirits do exist, spirit work really is about boundaries, protection. With spirits, it's about setting up for spirit work, which can be daunting. And introducing a spirit into your home or practice, or deciding if a spirit is right for you, is something I feel like a lot of people struggle with. So here are some of my best tips for starting spirit work, upholding spirit relationships, and more. Number one, this is my most important one, is recognizing spirits as autonomous and treating them with respect. If we consider spirit work to be like forming relationships, working with them, we have to at first acknowledge the spirit as an autonomous being. They have the ability to say yes, they have the ability to say no. It's based off of creating relationships, and a lot like similar to creating a relationship with a person. It requires respect, understanding, research, and time. A spirit is more likely to work with you if you treat them with respect in the first place. They are more likely to work with you if you have an interest in them, you research them, you take the time to take the time to get to know them. And also if you recognize that them saying no is a no. That's not a no later, it's just a no. Maybe no right now, maybe not. My next tip is that less is more. And this took me a really long time to get to this tip, to really recognize it and implement it in my practice. It's really easy to work with so many different spirits all at once, but in reality, less spirits is more spirits. I know practitioners who really only work with 1, 2, 3, 4 spirits. And then I know practitioners who work with a ton of spirits. Both work, it just depends on who you are, how many spirit relationships, and how much space you want, and how much space you have to uphold. I work with a lot of spirits, but many of them are in different ways for different purposes, and upholding all of the relationships is a lot of work. Some spirits demand a lot, some spirits demand a little, and before taking on and trying to work with every single spirit who ever appears to you and says, I want to work with you, or I want to help you with this, it's better to really kind of take stock of where you are energy-wise and what you're looking for. Like if a spirit comes to you and says, hey, I can help you with this money magic, you could say yes, or you can say, wait, don't I already have a spirit I go to for money magic that I have a much better relationship with? Just because a spirit says they want to work with you, they appear to you, they say they want to help, doesn't mean that you have to say yes. It just means that they want to work with you in the same way that we would consider deity work. And then sometimes you'll approach a spirit and they'll say no. Decide what kind of relationship you want to have with a spirit. This is a tip from my friend Gabriel, who runs a traveling witch, and their username is a traveling witch on Instagram. And also decide what is the difference for you between business type relationships and intimate relationships. Entities and spirits who are more centered in your practice may be those that you have more intimate relationships with, or while entities and spirits you have like more of a partnership with, maybe more business type or a transactional relationship. To give you a little bit more advice or understanding of transactional versus like intimate is you are involving the spirit a lot in your practice. You are prioritizing them, their needs, you're prioritizing what offerings they give and what offerings they get. And this may be something like your ancestors, where they are at, for me, in every single aspect of everything I do. They are involved in every spell, they are involved in my life in every way. So what I give to them is a lot more, and it's a lot more intimate because they're my family. So any kind of familial spirits like ancestors are going to be a lot more intimate in my practice versus some spirits like crossroads spirits, cemetery spirits, or certain spirits of place are a lot more transactional for me. I go and ask them for help with one specific thing, I pay them, and then if I want them to continue to help me with that certain thing, I continue that transaction. This also brings in this concept I talked about a little bit in my last video, devotion versus dedication. You can devote yourself to someone, but are you dedicating yourself to them? Are you showing up again and again, day after day? Are you committing time, energy, and resources to it, or are you just saying that you're devoting? You can be devoted to a lot of things, but devotion and dedication are two different things. My intimate relationships are equal parts devotion and dedication. My business type relationship really just is about dedication. It's about showing up, giving what I owe, and leaving. Versus ancestral connections, ancestral plant allies, I am devoted to them. I am living for them, I am waking up for them, and I'm also dedicating my time to them. Spirit work and relationship building takes time. This is something that I see so frequently, and I feel like no one talks about, is that none of this happens overnight. Like a lot of these ancestors, these spirits, I've been working on cultivating a relationship with them for years. Years! And before then, ancestral spirits, ancestral saints, ancestral herbal allies, I already have something there. I don't personally, but my ancestors did. So Saint Anthony, who my family prayed to for generations upon generations, is going to be a much quicker forming relationship than someone like Saint Expedite, who I am probably the first person to ever petition him in my family. And that is because in the past, Saint Anthony was called on by a lot of my ancestors, my grandma, my great-grandma, my sister, me. So there's like kind of a repertoire there that doesn't necessarily exist with a spirit that I'm just now talking to, because they don't know me, they don't know my ancestors. And so it's kind of like working with a family that your family has been close with for a really long time and asking them for a favor versus knocking on a stranger's door and asking them for a favor. And that's something to keep in mind when building relationships. And if a spirit isn't necessarily ancestral, let's say you're walking up to a stranger's house, knocking on their door and asking for something, it's gonna take a little bit longer for that trust to form and that spirit to really show up for you time after time. And of course, in terms of spirit work, there are spirits that are more willing to do something without that repertoire or are ready to do it, namely saints, then versus like a crossroads spirit where they don't know you, they may not know you. Be patient with it, give yourself grace, and give yourself time. Always, 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 always fulfill your petitions and your promises. The biggest mistake I ever still made, is promising something that wasn't accessible to me and then promising a lot. Make sure that you are aware of the amount of space, the amount of time, hi baby, and the energy to fulfill a promise. Don't overpromise something that is difficult for you to get or that may take a large amount of time if you know you won't have time to do so in the future. So if you were saying, hey, here's this offering for you, don't promise it if it's really difficult to get for you, and don't promise it if it's gonna take you a lot of time and a lot of energy that you just don't have at the moment. Always take stock of where you are and then make your promises and then fulfill them. So for example, if I'm promising biscotti to my ancestors from a very specific bakery or a very specific type of wine, both of which are more expensive, and I know I don't have the resources to afford that right now, terrible idea. Terrible idea. The times that I think that has happened and it's been okay is when I literally went searching for the offering and I could not find it. And I had to be like, hey, I can't find it, here's a replacement. They were like, okay, cool. That is different if you know, like, okay, this specific thing is at this specific grocery store and I have the time to go get it. And then you go to the grocery store and it's not there. out of your control. This is more of a preference and 100% not a tip everyone will relate to or agree with, and that's okay. Prioritize the relationships with ancestral and regional spirits. I noticed an insane change in my practice when I stopped trying to connect with things that I had no ancestral ties to, I had no regional ties to. So like a plant from a country that I've never been to, not one in a country that my ancestors never been to, or like had no relation to or didn't exist in my area. As a folk practitioner, it is much more about accessibility and fluidity for me to work with a pine tree in my backyard than a plant that I have no personal ancestral regional connection to. And this is difficult too, because a lot of the times when we're working with ancestral plants, they may be super inaccessible to you. So it may just be easier for you to work with a plant in your front yard or in your backyard than hunting and hunting and hunting for a very specific plant that your ancestors had a connection to that just doesn't exist in your area. In a similar vein, ancestral spirits are spirits that your ancestors may have venerated, petitioned, or worked with, such as saints, plants, regional spirits, are a great way to explore your ancestral practice and learn more about what your ancestors did. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll be easy for you to work with or easy to access. However, some of them are. Some of them you can find at a grocery store. While this may not be the best choice for everyone, I always recommend it since it was such a monumental change for me personally. Look into it, see where you are, and go from there. Final one, set up house rules. I've talked about house rules before. No one really knows what it means. If you live in a spiritually active house, whether it's full of saints, ancestors, or plant spirits that you are working with frequently, make sure you set up house rules. This is basically saying, hey, if you're in this space, this isn't okay, this is. This is probably going to be specific for people who aren't working with kind of protective spirits right off the bat, and that's okay. Or like maybe you're forming a relationship with a new spirit, or you're trying to bring a new spirit into your practice and you're like, hey, so if you're gonna be here, I'm not okay with this, I'm okay with this. This allows every spirit coming into your home to know the kind of expectations you set and to continue to keep your space sacred and protected, especially if you're working with more volatile or difficult spirits. That's the big thing. Set up protections beforehand, say, hey, if you're gonna be here, this isn't okay. For me, since I primarily work with ancestors, saints, and plants now, I don't necessarily have as much of a need for house rules, although I still set them up just in case, you know, something wanders in, says hi, and you're like, ah, what are you? And so what this does is it sets a prerequisite for any type of spirit coming in, whether it's friendly, non-friendly. Stinky, leave the mic alone. Don't shake your head at me. I got claws in my leg again. And now she's stuck. I think it's about time that you get a nail trim. So those are my 8 best tips. This is probably a little bit of a shorter video, but I wanted to get it out nonetheless. So let me know your best tips for spirit work, depending on what kind of practitioner you are, down in the comments below. I'm excited to read them. I have such a fun video coming this week and I'm so excited. Apart from this one, you're probably gonna see a little bit of a vlog type deal later, but yeah. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you want, you can like, comment, subscribe, but absolutely no pressure. Remember to drink water and enjoy the rest of your day. Siate benedetti.